Okay, so in this video, we're going to do a few things, but we're first off going to start off by talking about coterminal angles. So we're trying to find a positive and a negative coterminal angle to 3 pi over 2. So it's very important to notice that this 3 pi, or excuse me, 3 pi over 4. 3 pi over 4 is in radian measure. You can pretty much tell that because it's got a pi involved. So we need to be dealing with the radian form of a circle and not the degree form. So instead of adding or subtracting 360 degrees, we're adding or subtracting 2 pi. So to find a positive coterminal angle, we're going to start with 3 pi over 4, and we're going to add 2 pi to it. Now, when you're adding fractions, it may be easier to think of it as 2 pi over 1, and we're going to add these together. There is a method that is very easy to add fractions, any type of fraction. What you do is you start with your top left term. You are then going to multiply by the denominator of the other side. So you're going to end up with 3 pi here. You then take the sign in the middle, which is plus. You then multiply the other direction from the bottom left to the top right. So this creates 8 pi. You then divide by the denominators multiplied together, which is 4. So you're left with 11 pi over 4. And that is a positive coterminal angle. These two angles share the same angle measures, they share the same properties, which is going to be important to us later. For our negative coterminal angle, we're trying to get a negative answer, so we want to subtract 2 pi. Again, if we think about it as 2 pi over 1, it makes our life a little bit easier. So we want to try to figure this out. Same method as before. We're going to multiply down, and we're going to get 3 pi. And you see the only difference here is that this is a minus now, so we subtract. So that's the only difference. So it's important to pay attention to that. This is going to be 8 pi again. We then multiply across to get 4. This is going to give us negative 5 pi over 4. And so all three of these angles, 3 pi over 4, 11 pi over 4, and negative 5 pi over 4 all share the same properties, which is important to us. So if you're ever asked to find positive and negative coterminal angles, you just need to add or subtract 2 pi as many times as you want. We could keep adding 2 pi and keep getting coterminal angles for all of these. Example 2, to convert 135 degrees to radian measures. So we're looking to get a radian measure. So radian measures are going to be looking like this, like 11 pi over 4s and 5 pi over 4s and so on and so forth. So we're looking to add pi in and get rid of our degrees. So we start off with 135 degrees. In order to get this to radian measure, again, as I said, we're going to divide out the degrees and tack on the pi. Well, pi radians is equivalent to 180 degrees. So that's why we divide out the same degrees as the radian measures would be. So when we multiply this, we end up with 135 pi over 180. And this may be tough to simplify, but this does break down nicely. This is going to be 3 pi over 4. You can see that this divides by, both of these are divisible by 5. So you can get that done quite easily. And they're also divisible by 9 as well. Moving on. If I want to convert negative pi over 2 radians to degrees, it's a very similar process, just one little difference. So I start off with negative pi over 2. And I'm going to just go ahead and assign this negative to the top to be simple. And so in this case, I want degrees. So I want my degrees on top. I'm trying to add that in. So I'm going to divide out the equivalent radian measure, which is pi. So 180 over pi, or pi over 180, is going to be what you're going to use to convert. So when I multiply fractions, you multiply straight across, you're going to get negative 180 pi over 2 pi. Nope, that's bad. Okay, and so from this, we just need to make sure we simplify. Well, we've got a pi on top and a pi in the numerator and a pi in the denominator. They, in effect, aren't doing anything, so we get rid of those. This is the same as 180 degrees over 2. That is divisible. 180 is divisible by 2. And so this would end up creating negative 90 degrees. So this is the way you would convert from radians to degrees. And the only difference between converting from radians to degrees and degrees to radians is our little conversion factor there. So it's either going to be pi over 180. Again, you're dividing out the thing that you start with. You're trying to get rid of it and turn it into something else. So that's the thing that you need to be dividing by. And like here, we have radians, so we're dividing out the indicator for radians, which is pi.